in my tech stack, and it's called Trello. It's a project management board, and I'm going to show you three things. First, I'm going to show you what it would look like from scratch, just so you can kind of see like how you would start creating on it. Second, I'm going to show you how to use Zapier to do some basic integrations just to make it more functional. And then third, I'm going to give you a sneak peek at my Trello board that has 120 plus hours of automation built into it, and was actually being used as a fully functioning CRM for an agency, for my agency, up to the point where we had 200 clients. So it can do a lot more than you think. And if you'd like to see that, just stick around. So the first thing is Trello is a project management board. So it's kind of like a blank canvas. You start with just these lists. And when you're just getting started, you don't really know what it's supposed to look like, what you can do. So usually it would start with, project start. And then you have, actually the way I would do it is I would usually do it as a client workflow. So client in the works. And then I would do client paid. And then I would say intake form complete. And so basically it's like an assembly line. So, you have these people in the works, you have these that finally the invoice got paid. So you send them the intake form gets complete. And then it's, first draft, whatever it is that your service is. And then it goes to the client and then they approve and then we get set up and it's launched. Okay, so then the basic idea is after you create like the workflow, and it'll start simple and then you'll see, hey, we have all these intake form, or we have all these clients paid, but they haven't filled an intake form. And then you'll go in there and you'll have a little pile that says nudge for intake form. And now you have this list where you're sending clients that they've paid for a while, but they haven't done the intake form. So now you're going to send them an email, and then you're going to put them in that list so you remind yourself to stay up on it. And then basically you can have these cards. So I'm going to put my name, LNL, Lincoln Learn, and then you have these cool. You can do whatever you want with it. So you can have the product description. You can have notes down here, so you can kind of use it like a CRM. You can do like the checklist. So what we were doing is you could have blah, blah, blah. You could have the checklist, and then you could have like, you could have all the clients' info down here. So stuff like that. And then you could attach whatever. And then what I like to do is I had labels so that I could clearly identify everything. So depending on how they paid, whether it was from Upwork or Pay Kickstart or PayPal, I would have like, and Pay Kickstart is like my payment processing thing. So I'd have like all these different labels. Let's call this like our pro package. And then, so just based on like the outwards of the card, let's call this our $1,000 pro package. I would have that information there. And then as the client, moves along, okay, they paid, they move them over there. They still haven't filled out the intake form. Finally, we got the intake form. So the card moves along. And the cool thing is when you have a bunch of cards, this board's full. You can search for the card, you can find them, and then basically what list they're in tells you where they're at in the process. You click into it, it has all their information. So I really like this, and it's also really good for like handoffs. Like, so if you have a team, this list might be my responsibility, and then when I'm done, or it starts with the intake form and then it gets assigned to a content writer, and then the content writer, you sends it back to you for approval, and then you send it to the client. So you create your own little workflow, and then it's your own little handoff. So Zapier is like the glue that holds anything in today's tech world together. And this is the basic Zap. So if you were going to make a Zap that said, say you wanted to actually start using Trello the way I suggest, when someone fills out an intake form, you want that intake form to create a card here in your Trello board. So here's my Zap, and basically it's just if this then that. So you name it and you set the initial trigger, and ours is going to be, so when we send them a Google form, And when they complete the Google form, the answers get sent to this Google Sheet. So the basic trigger is when there's a new or updated row in this sheet, which is just our answers to the intake form, it's going to do an action. It's going to create a card in Trello. And then you basically just walk it through, okay, it's my Trello account. I want it to be this board. And then you set up the card. You're going to say, okay, the name of the card is going to be this, the description is going to be this, and you lay out all the details of the card so that it's set up the way you want with all their information already in there. And then you can set up multi-step. So when they fill out an intake form for us, not only do we make that card, but then in that same Zap, it sets up a trigger and sends them an email that says, hey, thank you for completing the intake form. Here's the next step, and here's what you can be expecting. And then it looks like, for this one, we also created a duplicate. But so that'd be the basic process. So, and all you'd have to do to get started on Zapier is you go in, you make a Zap, and it starts with this, testing, Trello. And it starts with whatever you want it to be, either the Google form or the Google Sheet. And then you just create the action. You know, if this happens, if I have a new spreadsheet row, and we're just gonna do the very basic. Yours is gonna be less complicated. You just have your one, whatever. And it's going to be, you know, you pick which sheet, let's just say whatever. You pick which sheet, and then the worksheet is what tab within that sheet. So when I have a new row in this tab, test it to see, you know, if there's data that's come in. So if you're setting this up for the first time, you just fill out your intake form to make sure you have data there. And then you just have to do the action. When this happens, then what? Then you would go to Trello, or you could just do Trello and you could do the email, and then you set it up the way you want there. And for this last part, I'm going to show you what I've actually fleshed out for our own Trello board. And I've talked with hundreds of founders, owners, and I haven't met anyone else who's used Trello quite like this. So you might find this interesting for all you Trello nerds or people who maybe don't know what you could possibly do. So what I've done is I actually hooked up our payment processor, which is Pay Kickstart. So when someone actually purchases from us, it automatically creates a card with their name, what amount they spent, and so we have a record that, you know, these people have payment. Then when they actually, you know, that triggers an intake form to them. When they actually fill out the intake form, it triggers a card to be made. So the first step we do is usually just verifying those two. Hey, we have a new intake form and here's the payment for it. You know, we combine those two cards and we know that they have, you know, paid. And then the step that actually is automated along with that is it creates the card and actually assigns it to our initial team member to create the sales navigator search groups, the list that we're going to work from, and gives them a to-do inside of Basecamp, which is kind of our water cooler type online office space kind of app. And what we then do is once that client has their search group, he'll move it over to this next board. And that movement does two things. It triggers an automatic email to the client, letting them know that, you know, we're now on this stage of the setup process. And it assigns a new to-do for our copywriter to actually get started on the messaging strategy. And then again, once the copywriter is finished with that part, they grab the card and they'll bring it over here. And the movement of the card to this file would actually trigger an email again to the client saying, hey, we've finished this portion of the setup process. Here's what we have so far. Take a look, give us your thoughts. And then we kind of use it as a project management slash almost like an assembly line where you can say, you know, from purchase all the way to launch, all the way to the end of a campaign, we're tracking where they're in the life cycle. So there's a lot of stages that go through the setup process. And then once they actually go live, there's another series of to-dos. We update the subscription, and then we actually started using Trello for lifecycle management as well. So we have, you know, the brand new accounts, the week ones, the week twos, and every single movement of the card into like a new list here triggers an automated email to the client letting them know, hey, you're at this stage of the process. This is what you should be seeing. This is what, the kind of feedback that would be helpful. Here's the link where you can book your monthly strategy call, and kind of encourages them and nudges them to give us feedback and stay in communication with us. So that part is automated, but then obviously as they respond with feedback, with questions, concerns, things like that, it's a real human being picking up on the other side, but the automation helps nudge them along, let them know what they should be seeing, that they should be seeing something, and kind of opens those communications. Once we roll into the next billing sequence, they get pulled over to here, and then we go bi-weekly nudges. Same kind of deal though. In the second part, we're giving them the link to book a strategy call, and then we, every single movement of the card into all these lists is able to be searched and sync automation to it. And the cool thing is, if I'm looking for a client, and let's say, and I say, I type in their name, like it will find them, and then it will find, what list they're in, which would tell me at what stage of the process they're in. And then I can click into, their account, and I can see their different information. I can jump in and I can see their launch docs, their lead sheet, their strategy document, their reporting, all the stuff that we give them, all in one nice location. So that's how we've used Trello and some of the different things you can do with it. Hope you guys enjoyed.